Please, hey, it's Adia. I am going to talk to you today about leaving to return, leaving familiar places, leaving places that you may have worked really hard to get into and sustain for a while, um, but that you need to leave in order to return to yourself or to return back to the path, or even that this leaving is part of the path to get you back to where you need to be. This was not what I thought I was going to talk to you about today. As I'm building this regular habit of sharing, but this is the one that popped up. So when I do the tribute to Doug Banks and Tom Joyner saying Reverend Okomfo Mwalimu Yogi Sister Mama Adia, it's fun. It's a it's a call out to people who are my age and who uh, may have been anywhere near the Chicagoland area and WGCI, and then also when Tom Joyner, I think, became syndicated. But it's also a a quick way for me to think through these are the places you're pulling from. So I come from. I'm going to talk about two places that I left to come back to myself and to come back to um, my unique contribution to my ancestral uh, lineage, to my family's lineage, and to the path that I've been called to, which is still unfolding every day. And those two places are church and school. So, starting with church, I come from a family of ministers, ministers, deacons, church leaders, church musicians, all kinds of things on both sides of the family, my mother and father. My father's sister, peace be upon her, was an AME bishop. My um, father's grandmother was also a preacher. A lot of women. My mother is a preacher, um, and went and got a doctor preacher at that. And then on her side of the family, there are cousins um, who are also ministers, and so it's in there. It's like that spaghetti sauce. It's in there. But and no but and so I've always felt connected to spirit. And there's a story that I'll tell more later where I remember being little. I think I may have mentioned it once already, but I remember being little and listening to the flowers, and the flowers were saying, Jesus is coming. I remember talking to the ants. I remember crying over a tree, a Christmas tree being put out for the trash because it felt very much like we were casting a living being out of our home. And there's a picture floating around in the family with me standing there as we get rid of the tree. And my brother and sister are smiling, and my face is screwed up. And I at some point, I actually put a letter on the tree, please take care of our tree. But all of that to say is that feeling called to feeling called to spirit and the space in my home and in my family that was provided for that to work that out was church, was the Baptist church in my family. That is not necessarily the churches that my parents came from, but that is where we landed. And so even now, like I don't know that it can be seen on screen, which is fine, but I have a journal that I write in every morning. When I'm sitting here, it's usually because I've just finished yoga. So when I finish yoga, I'm writing in my journal. And I've been writing in journals for about 40 years, about 40 years. And my journals from like the age of 12 until the age of maybe 20 are all my supplications to God. They 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 are endless notes about church sermons. They are endless notes about Bible studies and um, my my wrestling with puberty and hormones and sex and what is that supposed to be when it comes to church. So all of these things. And that continues for a while when I go back and look at my journal. So there's books on books on books on books that I have. So when I think about that, I think about how deeply connected, how how my love for music, my first experience of getting happy, Holy Spirit, that I now know in abundance of more names, being mounted, possession, all of those things. That the first place that I experienced that was in church, was in church, and I got to I went to undergrad, studied English and education, which I'll talk about in a second. Went to undergrad and studied English and education at the illustrious Hampton University. That's for all my HBCU folks. That's the right HU. That's the right one for me. Um, and then I left there, taught for a while in the school system. No, no, no. Yes, taught for a while in the school system, and then where entered seminary after being at a church in the city where I was initially teaching, and studied in seminary for um, 3 years, which is also another HBCU at the Samuel DeWitt Proctor School of Theology at Virginia Union. Um, and so what I learned in this evolution is that a lot of the things that I was initially given also led me to leave some of the familiar places. So I have been initiated as a traditional priest, practicing the Akan tradition in our community, in our home. And so when we were going through initiation, there are a lot of things that I would never talk about on video with initiation. But when we were going through initiation, there were a great deal of um, things that we would wear, talisman that we would wear for many, many different reasons. And when we wore them, that was the first time that I could physically see what the armor of God in, I believe it's Galatians, because Ephesians, I think, is the fruit of the Spirit. So in Galatians, when they're talking about putting on the full armor of God, the helmet of salvation, the breastplate of righteousness, your shield of the Spirit, all those things, your sword, your sandals, your all those things, this stuff is still stuck. It's still in here. When I learned that as a child, a young adult, and a child to a young adult, I didn't have any frame of reference to be like, oh, let me put on the full armor of God, except to imagine a full medieval suit, um, empowered with, with the power of God, with the full working protection, strength of God. But when I got initiated and I realized, oh, this is what this is. This is the full armor. There were so many things. There were so many things that were significant culturally, that were significant spiritually, that I was like, that's what it is. So it was leaving church and getting to that place to actually be able to understand the things that are ancestrally mine, that my ancestors connected to in Christianity. It took leaving to actually be able to find, oh, that's what that was. That's the through line underneath it. Even when before initiation, when when our family first started practicing in earnest with a community, I remember, and oftentimes it's very, for some people, it's very cerebral. It's like, well, I'm going to leave the church, but I'm going to study over here, and I'm going to gain this, and I'm going to learn this, and I'm going to fully understand the connections between culture and my race and my ancestry and the things that all of those different things. But I remember being at an Akom, um, a ritual space in Akom practice is the simplest way to speak to that. I remember being at a home and having a baby in my arms and being pregnant. And I was dancing through the Akom circle. And I came back around in front of either the drums or the shrines. And I was overcome and I started weeping. And one of the mamas came to get my baby so that I could just be present with spirit. And it was nothing's coincidence. So I was pregnant, and the song we were singing was honoring one of the deities that is a mother that brings life from Ensamando or from the world that is not this world that we cannot see, but brings life here as babies and also carries life there as elders who are being born into being ancestors. And so we're singing to her, and I get around, and that was it. And until that point, we had been in ritual space in the Akan tradition, and it was beautiful. You know, we were learning songs and all these different things. But until that point, I had not fully felt what I knew in church as catching the Holy Ghost. Until then, till that day, with one baby in my arm and another one in my belly. And it was so powerful, and it was so connected that it was like, this is the same thing, and it all belongs to me. This is the same thing. Whether it's Black folks in church, or it's Black American folks in church, or Black Ghanaian folks in Akom, or Black American Africans and Ghanaians, and however we need to be labeled in Akom space, it all belongs to me. So leaving the church as I knew it, even after being in seminary, even after studying, even after being a youth minister, even after accepting a position at a church and working in that position for a while, even after teaching in that church for a while, even with the lineage of my family, my full understanding, which still continues to come because it's not, I will leave here still gaining understanding, really came when I stepped out of the church and stepped into ancestral tradition. That's when it made sense. I had to leave to return, which, as anyone knows watching, um, Sankofa, to go back and fetch, is what happened. To go back and fetch, that it is not taboo to practice Sankofa, to go back and fetch what is necessary, and that fetching is what is necessary to move forward. If anyone has never seen the Sankofa bird, go look at a Sankofa bird. Go look at the symbol for the Sankofa bird. We'll talk about later how that relates, why that is important. The other thing was leaving public education. I was going to talk about school today because all three of the children that I had given birth to have been homeschooled from birth until my 16, now 17-year-old is at Hampton University. And the two children behind her, my 15-year-old and my 12-year-old, are still being homeschooled. And so they are now at the point where they're being homeschooled primarily by other people with my support. But for a while, it was by me, by me with the support of other people. So flip. But I studied, excuse me, as I said earlier, I studied English education at Hampton University. So I graduated Hampton University, went teaching, immediately went into a classroom, began teaching. The church that I was involved in, I was teaching. So I was on that path. I come from not only a family with ministers, but a family with teachers. My grandmother, my daddy's mom, is a teacher. Peace be upon her. My aunt on my father's side, my uncle's wife, is a teacher. The On my mother's side, there are aunts, quite a few, who are teachers. So, and on my father's side, great aunts who have been educators. So that is still yet another ancestral lineage that has come down in my family. And um, my mama, even though she was not a teacher by trade, she's been a teacher her entire life. She is the reason that our church had a youth choir and a youth fellowship, and she would teach the classes. She would teach vacation Bible school. She would have people in our home, all those various things. Which, when I started a homeschool co-op in my house, it just felt very familiar because I felt like I was doing it's what she had done. She worked in the PTA so much that I often laugh and I tell people I was homeschooled in public school. which isn't completely the case. However, she was always there. People knew I belonged to her and my father. They knew my name. They knew that when my brother came in, they knew who we were and the importance of people knowing who you are connected to and that someone actually loves you and is advocating for you is so invaluable, but especially in public school with children who sometimes you never see their parents. You can have parent teacher conferences and never see a parent. You can send home communication and never see a parent, which is devastating. So to be in public school, and it was, I remember one day, even in middle school, and this was not just my elementary school. She was in the PTA in elementary school. Everyone knew her. Everyone knew Miss Blackman. And so she was always involved in the things that were happening in school. But even when I hit middle school, my mom's keys used to be very full. Like keys to the car, keys to the van, keys to the house. Daddy had keys to the church. I'm not sure when she did, but so many keys that you could hear. It was a music to her keys. So if I heard that jingling, I remember being in a history class one time in my middle school, and I heard that jingling in the hall and jumped up out of my seat. I remember the teacher shouting at me out. I don't even know if the teacher did. It was so immediate that I don't even remember thinking, "Ooh, you shouldn't be on your seat," or "You need to ask your teacher." I jumped up out of my seat because I heard her key, stepped out in the hallway, and there she was, walking through the halls in our middle school. And by the time we hit high school, there were three schools in the district of my high school, and she worked at one. So still, people still knew these children belonged to the Blackmans. In our church community, there were people in our particular, she didn't work at my high school, but at our high school who advocated for us and knew us because of our church community. And even still, with all of that, I still left the public school system. I taught in public school for a while, and I've never liked the way a school building feels. There's only a few, there's only like maybe one or two where I've walked in the school building and I'm like, oh, it's a great place. Often they're gray. There's not a lot of light. Um, they're closed in. It's a very constricting. Don't want to use that word, but prison-like feeling in many schools. And I remember being when I came out and started teaching. I remember teaching in elementary school, and I remember one of my students saying, "Why you keep teaching us all this cultural stuff, all this?" I don't know if he said his word was either cultural conscious or African. Why you keep teaching us all this African stuff? It's fifth grade. Um, and one thing was, if I can get it in, I can get it in. I'm in a school with an overwhelmingly Black population. I want them to see themselves, I want them to hear themselves, I want them to hear things that they are not necessarily going to hear in these classes. And that particular student used to have these explosive reactions where he would get so mad he would throw tables and chairs. And I was just standing there with him. I would clear the class, send them all out, maybe to someone else's room, because everybody in the room, he was going through these things. And I remember saying to him one time, "You're a boy now, but the way you're behaving, people will not let you be a boy for long. And the bigger your body gets and the stronger you get, they will treat you like a frightening man. And as a Black man, they will do things to harm you because of their fear of you, because of them not allowing you to be a little boy who's wounded, who's hurt, whatever it was." And he's the same one who asked me, "Why you keep teaching us all this African stuff?" But that's the reason. That's the reason. And so I got to a point in teaching where I remember watching a child as we were dismissing, spin around in her shoulder on the floor because she was angry about something. I don't remember what it was. And I was like, oh, I will never bring babies that I have given birth to into this system. So I left at some point. We got married. We had children. Um, with my husband's support, I started a homeschool co-op in our house. We didn't have chairs in our house or a couch in our house because our house was filled with little people tables, little people chairs. We would eat dinner at little people tables and chairs. We didn't have a couch because the other room, this is in a small home, was filled with bean bags and chairs, and our TV became the monitor to show videos to the children. So I left the school system so I could provide a place with my education degree for my children and for other children in our community with some really dope um, families and other educators who had done the same with their children, um, to create a space for them that was safe, to create a space for them where they could be African American children, to create a space where they could learn of our warrior scholars, where they could learn of the through line of traditions that we do in Black households that come from throughout the diaspora, where they could share those things and not have to explain it to anyone else or make it okay. So, so in both of those situations where I invested a lot, or my father will say he invested a lot, he likes to call out the price tag that it costs for me to attend university. But a lot was invested in time, in identity, in um, just elbow grease in both of those places to lead them to return, to return to all those things that my ancestors had laid out, all the education, all the storytelling, all the spiritual work, all the healing, all of those things that my ancestors had laid out for me. I had to leave those places to return and to put what has uniquely been given inside of me as the next chain in what they have been doing. So, I hear all the names of my ancestors in my head right now, but as each one of them put a chain, as my great grandma put a chain, as my aunt put a chain there, even as it comes to, I'll talk about that in the video, but I want to talk about the connection between our bodies and spirit. And so, even in adding my unique link, I had to leave to be able to open up the space to be able to add my link. So, I want to encourage you that it's not bad to move past the fear, to move past others' fear, which often manifests as disapproval, but to move past your fear is the only one you can be responsible for, and is the only one that you can change. To move past that and move past the I got done with this, to be in this space, and this is what is expected, and this is to the place where what is not expected will move not just you, but all of us forward. When you do the thing that is not the prescribed thing, when you do the thing that is not the expected thing, that is what becomes the new modus operandi. That is what becomes the new way of operation because we realize, wow, that's healthier. Wow, we really needed that. And then we can't see another way of doing it afterwards. So, all of that to say that this is Reverend Okonkwo Mwalimu, which means teacher for anyone who does not know, Yogi, Sister, Mama, Adia, saying, don't be scared to leave so that you can return and keep moving forward. Have a great day. I'll talk to you soon. Peace.